Hello and welcome to this edition of Back in History. Back in History takes you back in time to the events that took place in the historical past. In this edition, we bring to you the full text of General Sanni Abacha's speech accepting the resignation of Nigeria's first and only interim president, Shonekan, and taking over the reins of power from him. Abacha was the most senior civil military officer in Nigeria at the time. General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida was Nigeria's military head of state from 1985 to 1993. He was the second longest serving military head of state of Nigeria, having served for 8 years. The longest serving military head of state was General Yakubu Gowon, who served for 9 years from 1966 to 1975. Babangida's regime later came under serious criticism, with repeated calls for the military to see to the conduct of democratic elections and the handover of power to civilian administrators. Babangida eventually acceded to the calls and lifted the ban on political activities in the country. Elections were scheduled and conducted. Governors had emerged. Senators and other members of the legislature had also emerged. What was remaining was the presidential election. In June 12, 1993, the presidential election was conducted and MK Abiola scored more votes than Alhaji Tofa and was the likely winner of the election. While Nigerians were waiting to hear the final announcement of the winner of the election by the electoral body, the election was annulled by the Babangida administration. This singular action changed the course of Nigeria's history forever. There were protests everywhere, and the seat of power became unbearably hot for the military. Babangida had no better option than to leave office and hand over to an interim president. He appointed a boardroom guru, Shonekan, to preside over the affairs of Nigeria as interim president. This itself was an aberration, as there was no legal backing for such nomenclature in the entire stretch of Nigeria's governance history. But Babangida created a backing for it by signing a decree in that regard. This decree became controversial almost immediately. Shonekan commenced his administration in earnest amidst the question of his legitimacy. But he went on nonetheless and did his best to steady the ship of the country. He worked with a couple of other persons, but something serious was waiting for him by the corner. On the dot of his 82nd day in office, 3 of the most senior military officers in the country at the time, namely General Sanni Abacha, General Oladipo Diya, and General Aliyu Gusau, walked into his office in Aso Rock Villa and caused him to resign. Shonekan, a civilian with no military training whatsoever, had no better option than to resign from office as commanded. He was lucky to be given the rare opportunity to present a resignation speech and have it documented for posterity. On the evening of the 17th of November 1993, Shonekan read his resignation speech and handed over power to the military. This was a brilliant coup for which no blood was shed and no gun was fired. Abacha was a coup master, and his flawless coup against Shonekan was not a surprise to many. General Abacha, the leader of the coup, accepted the resignation and mounted the national radio and made his own broadcast to the nation. Shonekan's exit was officially dressed as resignation, but in reality, it was a coup masterfully planned and seamlessly executed. Here is the full text of Abacha's speech accepting the resignation of interim president Shonekan and announcing himself as the new military head of state of Nigeria. Unquote. Fellow Nigerians, sequel to the resignation of the former head of the interim national government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Chief Shonekan, and my subsequent appointment as the head of state and commander-in-chief, I have had extensive consultations with the armed forces hierarchy and other well-meaning Nigerians in a bid to find solutions to the various political, economic, and social problems which have engulfed our beloved country and which have made life most difficult for the ordinary citizen of this country. Abacha continued, unquote, Chief Ernest Shonekan took over as head of state and commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces at the most trying time in the history of the country. Politically, economically, and socially, there were lots of uncertainties. Things appeared bleak, and the atmosphere was very heavy with uncertainties. However, driven by a belief in himself, his countrymen, and love for his country, he accepted to face the challenges of our time. I will therefore like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to him for his selfless service to the nation. He showed great courage at taking on the daunting task of heading the interim national government, and even greater courage to know when to leave. Many have expressed fears about the apparent return of the military. Many have talked about the concern of the international community. However, under the present circumstances, the survival of our beloved country is far above any other consideration. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must therefore solve our problems ourselves. We must lay a very solid foundation for the growth of democracy. We should avoid any ad hoc or temporary solutions. The problems must be addressed firmly, objectively, decisively, and with all sincerity of purpose. Consequently, the following decisions come into immediate effect. The interim national government is hereby dissolved. The national and state assemblies are also dissolved. The state executive councils are dissolved. The brigade commanders are to take over from the governors in their states until administrators are appointed. Where there is no brigade commanders, the commissioners of police in the state are to take over. All local governments stand dissolved. The directors of personnel are to take over the administration of the local government until administrators are appointed. All former secretaries to federal ministries are to hand over to their director general until ministers are appointed. The two political parties are hereby dissolved. All processions, political meetings, and associations of any type in any part of the country are hereby banned. Any consultative meeting, by whatever name called, is hereby proscribed. Decree 61 of 1993 is hereby abrogated. A Provisional Ruling Council, PRC, is hereby established. It will comprise the head of state, commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as chairman, the chief of general staff as vice chairman, the honorable minister of defense, the chief of defense staff, the service chiefs, the inspector general of police, the attorney general and minister of justice, the internal affairs minister, and the foreign affairs minister. Also, a federal executive council will be put in place. Abacha went on to say, still unquote, our security system will be enhanced to ensure that lives of citizens, property of individuals are protected and preserved. Drug trafficking and other economic crimes such as 419 must be tackled and eliminated. On the current strike throughout the nation following the increase in the price of fuel, I appeal to all the trade unions to return to work immediately. We cannot afford further dislocation and destruction of our economy. On the closed media houses, government is hereby lifting the order of proscription with immediate effect. We hereby appeal to the media houses that in this spirit of national reconciliation, we should show more restraint and build a united and peaceful Nigeria. Fellow Nigerians, the events of the past months, starting from the annulment of the June 12 presidential election, culminating in the appointment of the former head of state, Chief Ernest and Shonekan, who unfortunately resigned yesterday, are well known to you. The economic downturn has undoubtedly been aggravated by the ongoing political crisis. We require well thought out and permanent solutions to these problems if we are to emerge stronger for them. Consequently, a constitutional conference with full constituent powers will be established soon to determine the future constitutional structure of Nigeria. The Constitutional Conference will also recommend the method of forming parties, which will lead to the ultimate recognition of political parties formed by the people. While the conference is on, the reorganization and reform of the following major institutions will be carried out, namely the military, the police, the customs, the judiciary, NITEL, NNPC, NEPA, the banking industry, and higher educational institutions. Abacha went on to say, still unquote, "This regime will be firm, humane, and decisive. We will not condone or tolerate any act of indiscipline. Any attempts to test our will be decisively dealt with. For the international community, we ask that you suspend judgment while we grapple with the onerous task of nation building, reconciliation, and repairs. This government is a child of necessity with a strong determination to restore peace and stability to our country, and on these foundations enthrone a lasting and true democracy. Give us the chance to solve our problems in our own ways. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria." End of quote. Abacha went on to rule Nigeria from 17th November 1993 until 8th June 1998, when he died in his sleep at Aso Villa. Many thanks for watching this episode of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notifications on every new video.